Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Perpetual Chess. We have a special episode I'm really excited for, and I will introduce our return guest in one moment. First, wanted to thank our sponsors. First of all, Silver Knights Online Academy, which is one of the biggest after-school programs here in the United States, and they've been recently expanding their offerings to include more online classes, especially geared towards scholastic players. So whether you're a chess parent or a coach who has a talented kid that could use some extra instruction, these classes are a great way to help build community, get the kids working with kids around their rating levels. They have coaches suiting kids from like the 800 level all the way up to 2000 at the highest level. They have coaches like Grandmaster Johan Helston and FM James Canty, who, by the way, just won the kickboxing world championship somehow, according to his Instagram. So shout out to James Canty. Anyway, interactive classes. They've produced like 11 state champions already. So check out chessacademy.com/online if you know a scholastic player who could use some extra instruction, and use the coupon code POD, P-O-D, to get half off of your first month. So as for this week's podcast, we are being revisited by someone who I first interviewed way back in 2019. He is a popular YouTuber with over 270,000 subs. He's beloved and often recommended here by guests on this channel. He's got these extremely expansive opening overviews that tell you everything you need to know. He's also a dedicated improver. He grinds hard on his chess. He's made slow and steady progress while growing his channel after starting chess at age 25. But the reason for this interview is an exciting new project he's launched. It's called chessreads.com. It's primarily a website containing book reviews and recommendations, but it's also got its own dedicated YouTube channel. It's got a Discord channel that I joined yesterday that I'll link to, and hopefully you guys can find us in there. And I'm really excited as a chess book lover myself, and I think Stjepan even outdoes me in the chess book lover category, so I am pleased to welcome him back to the program. Welcome, Stjepan.
Thank you for having me again, Ben. It's a pleasure to be here. And hi to all the viewers or listeners, excuse me.
Yeah, both viewers and listeners. Yeah, and it's great to catch up. And for listeners who did not hear our prior interview, I think a lot of you listening are familiar with Stjepan's content, but it was actually more of an adult improver interview. So it kind of captures a moment in time in both of Stjepan and I's chess lives. A lot has changed since then. Stjepan has made good progress, but mainly I'm excited to talk about this new project. So Stjepan, chessreads.com, what's the origin story? Where did this idea begin?
Well, it actually began before we spoke the first time.
Wow.
I was in a bar reading a chess book, and I'd already started the YouTube channel, and I had an idea to do a series on chess books and also do a website on chess books along with a series on hanging pawns. But even though I'd written maybe 5 or 6 reviews, I never really had enough time to dedicate to that project and do it properly. But I kept taking notes every time I would read a chess book. So in time, over the years, I'd accumulated, I don't know, 100 chess notes on 100 chess books. And then finally, a year ago, I decided to go for it and create a platform. So the idea was to create a place where anyone who wants to improve at chess and who is looking for chess resources can easily see which books they should read based on their rating, strengths and weaknesses, openings they play, and a place where you can easily find chess books, because that didn't exist before ChessReads. That's what I wanted to do.
Yeah, and it's something that I've felt. You know, I do this weekly newsletter where I link to chess news stories, people's blog posts about their improvement journeys, but also reviews. And I've noticed it's not so easy to find quality reviews, especially in written format. So I've long noticed the need for this too. So I was really excited when you told me about this project. One thing I forgot to mention in the introduction that I want to get to before I forget, this will likely be a long episode, and we're going to do book recommendations for basically every 200-point rating band, but we have some questions to get to before then. But as always, there are timestamps. So if you just want to hear about your specific rating and skip around, be sure to check for those in the description. So as for the listener questions, Stjepan, you got a lot of interest. We have a lot of fellow fans, which doesn't surprise me since I'm a fan of your work myself. So let's jump into two questions at once. These, of course, are from Patreon supporters of the podcast. So I'll read the first two. The first one is from Nahul Marisi. Thank you for helping to support Perpetual Chess, Nahul. He writes, can books be more efficient than digital courses at helping players improve, or are chess books doomed? How should chess books be used to maximize the conversion of knowledge into skill? And then I'll read the next one that's related too, and then we can kind of just tackle them all at once. The next question is from Igor Feinstein. He says, I'm a bibliophile in general and also of chess books, which admittedly I've mostly been purchasing and collecting in my bookcase over the last several years. Welcome to the club, Igor. I've only read a handful of books cover to cover, but continue to add more to my wish list. However, I'm actually skeptical of whether chess books are even effective in terms of improving one's chess, especially when you consider the plethora of online resources that are out there. One, do you have an opinion on this matter? And two, there seems to be a debate over whether the older classic chess books or modern ones, especially with heavy engine analysis, are better for one's improvement. Are you pro older classics or modern chess books? So that's a lot to tackle at once, but I'll let you begin with whatever strikes you the most.
Yeah, there are multiple questions there, but let's start with the distinction between online resources and books, and then the use of books. So the first thing I'd like to say is, personally, I don't think there's a big difference between doing, let's say, a Chessable course and doing problems from a book, unless you struggle to play over the board as opposed to online. If you notice a considerable difference when you play over the board instead of looking at a 2D screen, maybe you should read from books and set up positions over the board. Personally, I didn't notice any difference ever, so I don't think it matters whether you go through online resources or books. And
yeah,
what do you think?
Yeah, I think it comes down to personal preference. I don't think it's the older generation proved that you can become an incredible player through chess books, right up to the top, right up to Magnus, who of course is a known chess bibliophile. But the newer generation has proven that you can do things 100% digitally. And there is an element to Igor's question of whether online tools are more efficient. I do think that might be the case. I know you've got a special section for opening books. I've long said I do feel like the spaced repetition that online tools like Chessable and Opening Book enable are great ways to help learn openings. But when it comes to solving hard problems, I do think that books are just as helpful. And a lot of it, I think, just comes down to personal preference. So to me, there's no right or wrong. Chess books certainly have a place. And you and I obviously are wired that way, but there might be others who can become quite strong without ever cracking a chess book.
I love what in your Perpetual Chess Improvement. I don't remember if it was Nate Solon or Greg Shahade who said in the debate on whether you should write down your analysis in a notebook while you analyze. He said, do you really think that Gukesh and Abd Satorov have notebooks filled with analysis? They don't. They turn on the engine and they move on. I love that part of the book. And I think that what you said, that the older guys are used to books, the younger guys are used to online resources. As you said, it's personal preference. But one point that I think is actually in favor of books, the feeling of you're reading a book. Okay, and there is the main variation, and then there are 10 different lines that branch out, and you set up each position over the board because you cannot follow them otherwise. That, I think, increases the chance of remembering it. So when you're doing something from an actual book over a real board and you have to set up all the pieces, you're doing the work. When you're doing stuff on Chessable, you can just click to the exact position you'd like, and then you lose that. At least, you're going to move the pieces in a more aesthetic way when you play over the board. At least that. I mean, but there's probably other aspects. well. So I think that's
Yeah, it engages the muscle memory, and a lot of people have said that they struggle with the transition from digital to OTB. So I do think that that in particular is a benefit of books. Now, of course, you could do that with the digital tools too. You could do that with Chessable and like go back and forth and play it on a chess set, but you don't hear people talking about that as often. And you and I both work online. I feel that anything we can do that's analog is probably good for us at the margins. Anything that we can do that's outside as opposed to inside and that is not just, staring at a screen till our eyes glaze over is good for our brains and probably good for our retention as well. But again, other people might have other opinions. And to continue the conversation, let's get to Igor's second question, which was the debate over whether older classic chess books or modern ones with heavy engine analysis are better. Do you have an opinion there, Stjepan?
before we answer that, could we answer his or the previous commenter's question on whether books are useful at all? Could you repeat the first question, because I think it's relevant
Yeah.
to this one as well.
Yeah, the question from Igor, I'm actually skeptical of whether chess books are even effective in terms of improving one's chess.
Yeah, I would like us to address that before we get into older or newer books. I think that people who want to improve at chess usually have one major misconception, and people who seek coaching have that as well. Whether you get a coach or not, 99% of your improvement is going to depend on your own work. And the same goes for books. You could have Jakob Agard and Magnus Carlsen coaching you every day. If you don't work on your own, there isn't going to be significant improvement. You could also read 200 chess books in a year and not improve. So I think it's really important to understand the skill part that a book should develop, meaning that you need to work and try to understand the positions from the book. And to answer the second question, whether older books without corrective engine evaluations are better for any reason, or the older classics, because of what I said earlier, I don't think that matters at all. It's your job to figure out the position. Whether the engine evaluates it differently, it's going to be different to your own personal evaluation anyway. It doesn't matter. And you need to come up with your own solution. You need to check the analysis. Usually what I do with every book is if I'm not satisfied with my answer or with the answer from the book, which is almost always the case, I'm going to check it with the engine anyway. You know the feeling when you're analyzing a position from a book and then the author says, okay, the correct solution was this was wrong. But there were other 3 candidate moves you were thinking about, you thought were reasonable, that the book doesn't even mention. Well, how do I figure that out? I turn on the engine. So to answer his question, I honestly don't think that's it.
Yeah, and this is another one, as I allude to in my book, one of the raging debates, where you'll have people argue both sides. For example, when I interviewed Grandmaster Alexander Fishbein recently, he had this amazing breakthrough to win the U.S. Senior Championships against a lot of his rivals who have kind of held over him leading up to it. And he's been doing his own sort of proprietary developed training method where he goes through old books specifically so that they're not touched by engines and tries to find errors in how people analyze. Now, that's a very sort of high-level approach for a grandmaster to use, but I do think that there is something to be said for especially the point that Alex makes about seeing how people actually thought without it necessarily being touched by the engine. So, but my issue with a lot of the older books, I've talked about my system before, it's been updated in the past, is their readability tends to suffer, in my opinion. Now, there are some classics that stand the test of time, like Simple Chess, My 60 Memorable Games, the Irving Chernev books. Those books, I think, are just as readable as modern books, and you see what people thought, for better or for worse. And as Stjepan said, if you think there's a mistake, you can check it. But having said all that, I do think over time, just like everything else, chess books are getting better. So as Alex alluded to when I interviewed him, I'm also not a fan of the books that are just engine regurgitations. But if it's a recent book that's about like how to approach thinking in chess, and you know that the moves are going to be right because they've been checked by modern engines, to me, that's a bonus.
Yeah, sure. I mean, having engine checked lines is great, but you mentioned readability. Personally, to me, that's one of the most important things about the chess book. And I don't mean that it's, just text, no diagrams, or fewer variations. I mean that the things that are explained in words for people and not, here's the line, black's better, and then here's a sub variation. So I think that's very important, and having the correct engine evaluation, of course, is a bonus. And I agree with you that the chess books have improved generally.
Yeah, they're so good. They're all so good now. It's hard to keep up.
Yeah.
And on the topic of readability now, we had another listener question. This one is from Michael Spisner. And Michael said, Stjepan, you're one of the best chess explainers in all of YouTube land. It's obvious that you put a great deal of time and thought into every one of your videos. Thank you for all that you do. I think that there are two types of chess books. One, books that require a board, where I carefully follow the narrative and track the variations by moving my pieces as I study. And two, books that are self-contained, that is, they're either primarily text or they have enough diagrams so that I can read the book while sitting comfortably on an armchair or a sofa. A, do you agree with this bifurcation? And if so, I'd be interested to hear your recommendations in each book category for the various rating bands. So we'll get into the recommendations. Maybe you could name a few, but generally, what do you say to Michael's question?
Yeah, first of all, thank you, Michael. And that's very important thing for me personally. And there are only two factors on ChessReads other than rating and category. It's usefulness and readability of each book. And those are scores assigned to every book on ChessReads. There's a question mark explaining what readability is, because people normally don't understand, but it's basically how desperately do you need a board next to yourself while reading the book. So a readability of 1 out of 10 is just, it's a puzzle book, no words, and 10 out of 10 is a novel. So I think that there are many books. Let's name them while we get into the rating categories, but to name a few, Ben's Perpetual Chess Improvement and Jakob Agard's Thinking Inside the Box are perfect examples of books that you read like they were the Lord of the Rings. You can enjoy them. And the diagrams that are in there, you can solve them without the board because they are relatively simple to follow, and it's either one main line or a few variations.
Yeah, and there's so many more. I mean, I'm a sucker for chess biographies in particular, like Jans Timman's works, as I've mentioned many times, and the recent Chess in Black and White by Grandmaster Paul van der Stern. There's actual proper biographies like Frank Brady's work on Bobby Fischer, Profile of a Prodigy, and Endgame. So there's lots of chess bedside reading available. One other distinction I would draw regarding Michael's question is I've noticed from both interviewing and hearing top players interviewed that as you get stronger at chess, that distinction might go away a little bit. Like Magnus, as he's talked about, I've of course one of the few top players I haven't had the chance to interview is Magnus, but he's talked about, like in his interview with Joe Rogan, about how he just devoured chess books as a kid, and he did not really use a chess set, but he's also Magnus. So I think he reached a level very quickly where he could play through all the moves in his head without needing to play it on a chessboard, and it was just as effective. And people like Jordan von Forest, who I've interviewed, have said the same thing. They used it as a training method to try to go from diagram to diagram as a way to build your visualization skills. So while there can be a distinction between books that you can read without a chess set and books that you can't, there's also can be sort of an aspirational element where you say, okay, I'm not going to get a chess set out with this book, but that doesn't mean I'm going to be relaxing on the couch. That doesn't mean I'm going to be super lazy. I'm going to be very engaged and really stretching my brain in order to get the most out of the book, even without a chess set. But that's one where I think the more developed, the stronger a chess player you are, the easier that becomes.
I had a discussion about that with GM Jakob Agard recently, and I asked them that specific question because I'm not always sure whether I should use a board, because many times I can follow the diagrams, but I set it up anyway. And he told me when he used to work with the Indian prodigies, and he would make them set up the positions on the board every time. And those guys are 2600. They can visualize whatever they want. He told me that if the positions are simple, you should solve them without setting them up. But anything that requires deep concentration, even if you can visualize, even if you can follow, it's better to set it up over a board to train pattern recognition and everything else. So that's his opinion.
Yeah, and obviously his opinion carries a lot of weight. And yeah, we should mention that Stjepan is also posting author interviews on his channel, which is an amazing addition. We've got two more listener questions before we get to book recommendations. for different rating bands. Next up is from longtime friend and supporter of the pod, Chris Wainscott. Chris says, first, want to say I've truly enjoyed your videos over the years. Second, how do you select your next read? Do you tend to focus only on books on improving, or do you also enjoy biographies and history? And then he had a recommendation question too. So go ahead.
Well, first of all, the situation regarding my reading list is specific now because of ChessReads. So I have different criteria now. But before I started the project, I would do one of two things. Either I would find a book with problems that are slightly too difficult for me to solve, because that's what I have to focus on. Usually people know that my biggest weakness is our calculation and visualization. So if I'm feeling really ambitious and I want to work hard, I do that. But if I'm choosing something I'm going to enjoy, I'm going to choose books that are about thinking processes, the theory of studying chess, biographies like, let's say, Life and Games of Mikhail Tal, Smyslov's best games, Alekhin's best games, books about tournaments, or I'm going to choose a book with endgame studies like Jan Timman's Art of the Endgame, because that's what I enjoy. But it depends on whether I'm picking a book to work and improve my calculation, or I'm picking a book just to read.
Yeah, that makes sense. For me, it's like if I was, because I'm not super ambitious as a player at this point, left to my own devices, I would gravitate all towards the more readable side of the scale. But I do read the books of whoever I'm interviewing, whoever has new books coming out. And in that case, I'll dig in and roll my sleeves up a little bit as well. So we have one more question before we get to some Rex, although this one actually asked for Rex. So this is from Roy Lopes. Thanks as always for helping us support the pod, Roy. He writes, I feel like the thinking process is an overlooked area in chess improvement. Do you have any recommendations for books or other resources on that topic? Looking forward to continuing to follow your chess journey.
Thank you, first of all. And yeah, I do think that thinking processes are usually neglected in chess literature. That has changed recently, or began to change. And there's actually a separate category on ChessReads just for the books on thinking processes, because I think those are really important. And I do have many recommendations. A book I just finished recently is Think Like a Super GM by Hurtado and Michael Adams. So Hurtado is, let's say, the scientist, and Adams is the chess player. And Hurtado has had this idea to improve on de Groot's psychological theory of chess improvement from the 30s. So basically, the book has 40 positions solved by Michael Adams, and then a 2600 GM, 2500, and there are, let's say, 20 or 30 people solving each position. But the fun part is you get to read their analysis, their thinking processes, with the time spent on each move, each decision, each segment of their thought, because everything was recorded, and they were also tracking eye movement. So it doesn't specifically tell you how to improve your own thinking process, but it lets you in on how people from 1200 to 2700 think about positions. I was really impressed with that book. So sorry about the rant. Other than that, I don't know if you've heard of Daniel Gormali's Tournament Battle Plan. It's an excellent book. It's like reading Monty Python, reading his books. It's just excellent. He also talks about a lot of practical advice. Then Ben's book, Perpetual Chess Improvement, there are probably 1,000 pieces of information that could help you improve your thinking processes. The same goes for Thinking Inside the Box by Jakub Agard. Eric Kislik's Chess Logic in Practice is great. How to Study Chess on Your Own by Davorin Kulyashevich. There's a book,
another good one.
And then there are 3 workbooks. I mean, the workbook for my rating range and his first book that gives the sort of a general overview of how to study on your own, and then the workbook for 2100 and above players is just exceptional. His ideas aren't new, but the way he explains them makes it seem like you can easily apply them. And his advice, when you have a GM say, well, you should do this, and this is going to be effective, and this is going to work. This has worked with my students. Here's an example. Then that helps. I felt like I could easily apply his advice and change my own thinking processes. Then I have to mention Jonathan Rawson's Chess for Zebras and 7 Deadly Chess Sins. Those are among my favorite chess books. They're just great. The Lord of the Rings 1 and 2, I can mention Game Changer, even though it's about engines or about neural networks. You can improve your own thinking processes by reading that book, because Sadler is a great author, player, and scientist, and delving into how neural networks think about chess, compute chess was eye-opening for me. What else? I don't know.
I can give a
Under
few
the
more, but first of
Surface
all, I
series.
mean, that was impressive.
One more, Under the Surface by Jan Markus. That's a great book.
Yeah, great book. And for like that was a lot. And on Stjepan's site and on mine, a lot of those are overlap with the book on my recommended site. And I do have those sorted by rating range, as does Stjepan. So most of those I would say are higher level recommendations, say at least 1600 up, sometimes even more. Just to name a few more at great risk of overwhelming everyone, I'm a fan of Improve Your Chess Now by Jonathan Tisdall. I did a podcast about that a few years back that listeners can find. Dan Heisman, and this one is good for players rated below 1500. His Guide to Chess Improvement has a lot of stuff about sort of how to be systematic in your thinking. And in the online realm, I got to give a shout out to Dr. John Kabadai, who of course is a cognitive scientist and a adult amateur, strong amateur, but amateur player. And he's looked at how to approach thinking in chess backwards and forwards. So he's got courses on blunder checking and calculation, and really teaches things in a systematic way. So if you are digitally inclined, can't go wrong with Dr. John. We should probably stop there on this topic. We could both go for another 10 minutes. So let's get to the rating range recommendations. So what I did, and these are loose, but we'll do our best, but I broke things down into 200-point increments. So under 1,000, 1,000 to 1,200, 1,200 to 1,400, 1,400 to 1,600, 1,600 to 1,800, 1,800 to 2,000, and over 2,000. And we'll leave it there. And I think we can start from the bottom like Drake and start below 1,000. So, and I found this hard, but what would you recommend for below 1,000?
I struggled with this. I mean, I already had to do it for ChessReads, but let's first make a distinction, because this is a question I got probably over 100 times in the last 3 days. People ask me about the rating ranges on ChessReads, and your rating ranges that we're going to discuss today, we have to determine which ratings we're talking about. So on ChessReads, anything above 1,500 refers to FIDE ratings, because they exist. And I think they're the only true measure of skill. I mean, that's what people agree on. Below 1,500, those are either online ratings or, let's say, chess.com ratings, because FIDE ratings below 1,500 or 1,400 don't exist anymore, right?
Yeah, although I think you could safely say not Lichess, because Lichess's ratings are hundreds of points higher.
Yeah. So when we talk about 800 to 1,000, we're assuming online ratings. So let's say chess.com online rating.
Yeah, I think chess.com is a decent proxy, and FIDE is going to be a little higher, but it's close enough. None of these are exact anyway, at least from my end.
But FIDE doesn't even exist. There are no 800 FIDE players. It's impossible. So personally, it's really tough for me to get into the mind of an 800 rated player, and actually to prepare for this, I asked 2 of my friends who play chess to play games on chess.com. One of them ended up being rated 1,100, the other one 900. And I had them play against each other. And I was looking at what they did. And I chose 2 books that would help both of them immensely. So hopefully these are good general recommendations. Chess Pattern Recognition for Beginners by Arthur von, I wrote down the last name. Ode Federling. I'm sorry, I cannot pronounce the name. It's a Dutch name. But Chess Pattern Recognition for Beginners. There are so many patterns and great positions and great strategic themes and positional themes explained in a very simple way, in a way that a 6-year-old could understand them. And I like the book myself. I knew all of that. I had seen the patterns before, but it was well written, and I found it interesting and not boring, even though it was meant for beginners. And then the second one, 1001 Chess Endgame Exercises for Beginners by Thomas Willemse, great endgame. And it's not it's not like the Philidor and the Lucina. Those are more complex in terms of there are more pieces on the board. But I think that beginners find it easier to calculate and visualize with fewer pieces on the board. And you couldn't say necessarily that positions with fewer pieces are always simpler, but they are simpler to introduce beginners to how to visualize and how to calculate and how to properly plan.
Okay.
The plan
Yeah.
goes.
Yeah. And for mine, I tried to come up with a fresh recommendation, something that wasn't on my website. But the more I researched, it was either stuff that it was geared towards kids specifically or stuff that I wasn't as familiar with. So I'm going to stick with Everyone's First Chess Workbook by Peter Giannatos. It's sold like gangbusters, turned into a chessable course. And it's really the best I've seen in terms of being reasonably comprehensive. And if you do it, you will become a better chess player. And that I think has material that probably goes all the way up to 1200, but certainly is a great place to start. The other thing I would say is below 1000, a lot of it is just about repetition and learning to identify unguarded pieces and keeping your pieces safe. So I would say, to our earlier discussion about books versus practice and online, especially at the lower level, you're almost better off just playing and figuring out why you lost and playing and figuring out why you lost, even more so than going through exercises. All right, next up, and we'll be running into a similar problem, but at a lesser scale, 1000 to 1200. What did you choose?
Yeah, first of all, I wanna agree with you 100% on your previous point. If you're below 1000, probably shouldn't read chess books. You should finish a game, and if you find it fun to analyze it, and you spend some time analyzing your game, and you think that's and you learn something, you get some new ideas, then you will improve. 1000 to 12, Winning Chess series by Seyravan. All the books. Winning Chess Strategies,
classic.
Winning Chess Tactics, Winning Chess, I don't even remember, Winning Chess Openings. There are, I don't know how many books, there are many. I remember when I first started out, I loved Yasser Seyravan, and I was watching his lectures on the St. Louis Chess Club YouTube channel. And my friend had Winning Chess Strategies, and I said, "Can I borrow this book?" He said, "Sure." I came home, and it begins with, very, very simple concepts that are very simple. Those books might even be useful for people between 800 and 1000, but I'm not sure. But his books are great.
Yeah.
His writing is it feels like someone's telling you a bedtime story, and that feels great. It doesn't feel
just like his
coach drilling you. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, just like his announcing, and it's an impressive that he was a world-class player and managed to write on that level.
Exactly. That's the most important point. He was top 20 in the world, and he managed to write what I think is one of the best series for very low rate.
Yeah, good choices. And for my recommendation, I've mentioned this before on the pod, as I will have with almost everything I mentioned. I've been doing this for 10 years. Instructive Chess Miniatures by F.M. Alper, F.A. Adaman. It gives you a little bit of chess history. It takes you through games all the way back from the 80s. And unlike a lot of game annotation books, the annotations are pretty thorough. So I'm a big fan of that book. Okay, next up, we're up to 1200 to 1400. What do you think, Stjepan?
Do you want to go first so that I don't ruin your list
So again? This is one I could have put in any category, really, but I went with Silman's Endgame course, mainly with the idea that this is like before 1200 to 1400, I would say it's optional, and after 1600, there become other resources that might be as helpful, but specifically around this level, I think it's a great overview for endgames, and I love the way he has it presented by ratings so that you can kind of grow up with it and do your level as you get to it. But around that point in your chess development is where you want to go up to your rating. I'm not like a huge endgame study on its own advocate. Do whatever you enjoy, but for me, I think at the lower levels, they're not super important unless you're seeing failure in your games all the time. But to learn those basics up to your level, I think by the time you get to 1400, if you haven't done it yet, you should make some time for it.
Yeah. I shouldn't have asked you if you wanted to go first for this rating range, because I have Silman here as well. But yeah,
it's okay.
Yeah, Silman is a great textbook on endgames that has a bit of all three categories. It has technical endgames, it has complex endgames and strategy, and it's also a workbook where you can get to solve some positions. So it's good. Other than that, I think that within this rating range, somewhere here, you should also study the basic endgames. I think that's important. So if you don't get Silman, you can get any endgame book that covers technical endgames, like De La Villa's book, which is good for any level. Other than Silman, I have Learned Chess Tactics by John Nunn. And even though Nunn is an amazing mathematician, an absolute genius, and he was top 20 in the world, he, just like Yasser Seirawan, manages to write books that are for normal humans, and they're easily digestible, and also has Understanding Chess Middle Games is a great book for this rating range because it's 28 or something, I forgot the number of middle game concepts or strategic concepts. Each is explained on a single page or maybe 2 pages with 1 or 2 examples, 1 main line, well annotated, great book, easy read. Then after that, I have Lessons with the Grandmaster, where Boris Galko, who is a GM, and what's the other guy's name?
Joel Sneed.
Joel Sneed.
Dr. Joel Sneed, yeah.
Yeah, they have a discussion about positions, and the goal of the book is similar to think like Super GM, to see the difference between how a strong player and a less strong player thinks. I think that's a very good book. All three, but the first 2 books and Lessons with the Grandmaster for that rating range, because I feel like when you get to sort of 1400, you've mastered the basics. You need to go beyond the simplest concepts, and the easiest way to do that is to listen how stronger players think. So the final 2 books in this rating range, or 3, I may have 3. My Best Games by Smyslov and My Best Games by Alechin, although the names could be slightly different. I think they are my best games. Very well written and good annotations, not engine checked, of course, so there are many mistakes, but that doesn't matter. Your goal with these books is you don't even have to set up positions over a board on your level, let's say you're 1300. It's just to see how a strong player thinks during the game. And then finally, Capablanca's best endgames or chess endings by Chernin. That's a great endgame book. That's not an endgame book like De La Villa or like Dvoretsky. It's an endgame book that slowly takes you through interesting endgames, explaining the ideas. And even if you don't follow all the variations, it's still going to be very useful.
Good stuff. No wrong answers included there. Moving on to 1400 to 1600. I went with Pump Up Your Rating by Axel Smith, and that's one. It's more of a generalist type book, so it could help a wide range of ratings, but I did feel like that's around the level where it can be really helpful to have a framework, and he kind of gives you a framework. I mean, a lot of it's focused on, of course, that's where he originally laid out the woodpecker method and the idea of spaced repetition of tactics, but he also talks a lot about going over your mistakes, talks a little about how to approach critical moments and how to allocate your thinking time. So it's a book that's kind of more like a teach you how to fish rather than catch you a fish type book. So I think around that level is a good time to introduce it. And recent adult improver guest Nicholas Sloan, who gained like 400 points in his 40s, is a huge advocate of that book as well. What say you, Stjepan?
I'm going to be honest and say that I really didn't find it useful. I don't know why.
Wow, a disagreement. That's good.
Let's say you have Pump Up Your Rating, and then you have How to Study Chess on Your Own by Davorin Kulyashevich. You could say that they cover the same topics, roughly, because they cover each segment of training and thinking processes, and they try to instruct you how to improve them. I found Davorin's books much more useful, both the exercises in the workbook and the theoretical part and the discussion. It was a good book, though, but I also, do you really think it's 16 to 1800?
It's been a while since I've read it, so I could be wrong on that. That was 14. I think we're in 1400 to 1600.
Excuse me, 1460. Yeah, that's actually what I wanted to say. I think it's slightly too advanced for that level as well. I remember solving stuff from the book. I don't remember which parts I struggled with, but there definitely were parts that weren't easy, that were difficult. So I don't know. For this rating range, I have Life and Games of Mikhail Tait, because that's a wonderful book. And
Yeah.
I think it's important to start thinking about not your style, because when you're below late, like when you're below 2300, I don't think you should even think about style, but it's important to build a library of strategic patterns. And for most people, it's difficult to be imaginative during your chess games, and most people will either play very carefully, just like I do, or they will play carelessly, but poorly. So for both categories of players, learning how to attack properly is very important. So to the 14 to 1600 rating range, I would also add Fire on Board by Alexei Shirov. Those are
Oh,
basically the
fun one.
same book.
Yeah.
Those are two maniacs who played extremely interesting games. Shirov still does. And the books are excellent with great annotation.
Yeah, those are great choices. Although these are like elite players, but they do a pretty good job explaining, and there is something inspiring in the way that both of them play. And just to add to your point about perhaps pump up your rating, is I'm not recommending it for the right level. If I ever, first of all, I have many books for each rating range on the websites. If you don't like one, you can try out another one. But if I ever recommend something that either you felt like it didn't fit your level or you just didn't enjoy it, please drop me a line, because this is an evolving process and I don't want to make bad recommendations. Some of these books I've read recently, others I have not read for 10 years or so. So I would be curious to hear if anyone tries Pump Up Your Rating or another book and finds it more or less useful. As for the next level, so 1600 to 1800, around this level, there's so many books I could recommend, but I went with another one I've done a podcast about, Chess Tactics from Scratch. Which sort of sounds like it might be a beginner book, but it can be useful, I think, from anyone from 1200 to 2200. But Martin Witeshnik, the author, does a fantastic job of really deconstructing what constitutes each type of tactic and kind of showing you layer by layer how it can get more complex. So if you haven't already done it by that level, it's a great book. And the other thing about that book, as I mentioned when I recorded a whole podcast about it, just the puzzle selection is A+. He just find some really cool problems that really drive home the points.
Yeah, I can agree with that, definitely. For this rating range, I have three books, and I think all three are exceptional and very different. So the first book is Exchange Sacrifice According to Tigran Petrosyan by Vasilias Petronius. It seems like a very specific book, but it's really not, even though it goes over the same strategic pattern of Petrosyan, sacrificing the exchange either for the attack or for a positional purpose. It's well written and it covers so many themes. I found it really useful, and I read it maybe 5 months ago after already
Okay.
reading many books. It's really short. It's well written. It's poorly designed. The margins are pretty thin. It's very hard to read it, but it's a great book. And the second book, Chess Structures by Mauricio Flores Rios. I think that's a great book that you need to have on your desk. If you're a chess improver, you need to have it with you. And then when you finish a game, you open up the chapter, or on, I don't know, Najdorf type 1, if you play the Najdorf, you see what Rios has to say, you go through the games quickly. I use it when I prepare for my opponents. It basically covers 28 most common pawn structures with general rules, themes, tactical points to each structure, and example games. So it's the same way I used Dvoretsky's endgame manual. If I play the game, I didn't understand the endgame, I'm gonna open up Dvoretsky's endgame manual and see what he has to say. That's how I use Rios' book for structures. And finally, Amateur to IM by Jonathan Hawkins, which I think is an exceptional book. And you could also include that on the list of books for improving thinking processes that the commenter had a question about, because Hawkins is a guy he is an adult improver. You could call him that, although on a very high level. And he improved without a coach by simply playing out complex endgames that occur frequently in games. So it's an endgame book in essence, but it's an endgame book that teaches you how to improve on your own. by simply playing out positions. So I found it really useful.
Yeah, very, very impressive book. And I obviously second your praise of chess structures as well, an absolute classic. And this is, by the way, the rating range that Igor Feinstein had asked about. So I think he's into online trainers. So I think he should do chess tactics from scratch first. I agree with both chess structures and amateur IM. I actually have not read the Petrosian Exchange Sacrifice book, so I'm going to have to check that one out. Moving on to 1800 to 2000, this is another level where there's a lot of great choices available. I did another one that I've done a podcast about. I did the Mammoth Book of the World's Greatest Chess Games. Just an amazing game collection. Make sure that you've seen basically all the classics. And the annotations are really good. You get different perspectives, a few different top players like Wesley So and Michael Adams writing introductions. So, and that's a fun one. You know, you don't have to read it cover to cover. You can just play through one of the coolest games from history, except for from Paul Morphy, as I talked about with Dr. Christopher Chabris when we recorded that podcast. But other than Paul Morphy, you can play through some of the coolest games that ever took place, the highest quality. But yeah, there were a lot more I could have recommended. But what did you settle on, Stjepan?
We spoke a bit about things like a Super GM. I would put that in 1800
Yeah.
to 2000. Great book. I would, and this is debatable, but Agard's GM preparation series, either here or for people above 2000, I think 1800 to 2000, because I'm 2000 now, but I was 1850 when I went through the series. It was difficult, but my completion rate was 60-something% the first time I went through calculation and strategic play. So it was okay, maybe 70%. I don't remember now exactly. And then for endgames, there's a really good book on endgame strategy by Lars Bohansen called Secrets of Chess Endgame Strategy. I get confused with the names. I think it's Secrets of Strategy. Lars Bohansen is the author, and it's basically Shereshevsky's endgame strategy on steroids. It's just a much better strategy book. I love the book. Finally, Learn from the Legends. I've only read the first book by Mikhail Marin, Learn from the Legends.
Yeah.
And it's one of my favorite books. I haven't gone through part 2 yet. I'm waiting for it to arrive. But for those of you who don't know, the book is structured in a way that each chapter covers a player and what he was best known for. So Rubinstein's endgames and so on and so on. And Mikhail Marin has this great way of explaining things. And I just enjoyed the book and found it really useful.
Yeah, absolute classic. Been recommended many times. And yeah, he's a great storyteller and a great person to chat with as well. But yeah, definitely recommend Learn with the Legends, or Learn from the Legends. Okay, so last level. And again, we could go further, but we're not Grandmasters, so we should probably stop at over 2000.
Yeah.
And this is another one where my lists get longer for the rating range as I go. But I settled on one that actually somehow was not on my website for recommended books. I clearly overlooked it then, need to add it. But I went with Positional Decision Making in Chess by Grandmaster Boris Gelfand. Of course, as I talked about many years ago with Jakob Agard, he is really the co-author. I mean, obviously it's a quality chess book, so we know that he's involved, but the writing process mainly involved them talking over their games and Agard actually doing the writing. And that really helps the book immensely because players of Gelfand's caliber, as we discussed, vis-a-vis Saruhan, it's not that they never can explain things at an understandable level, but they often can't. But Gelfand, you get a flavor of how a world-class player thinks and approaches positional decision making, but luckily you also have Agard to kind of guide you and hold your hand. I mean, it's still a very high level book. Grandmasters recommend it all the time. I would say maybe it even belongs above, I don't know, 21, 2200, but it's so well written and so clearly presented. But by the time you're over 2000, you'll definitely enjoy it and you'll definitely get something out of it, whether it's the perfect book for you or not.
Yeah, that's a great book. I didn't mean to recommend this, but another book in the same series, Decision Making in Major Piece Endgames, or in what's that? I always forget chess book names because they're all the same, but it has a green cover. Positional Decision Making has a red one. There are 3 books in that series. All 3 are great. Same way.
Yeah.
But the 2 books I really wanted to recommend are Supreme Chess Understanding by Wojciech Miranda. And
Yeah.
I actually have them here. I've prepared the books that, that are for my level. So I don't think you can see this. No, not the tournament battle plan. Sorry, Daniel Vermali. I don't want to show you. Oh, and we spoke about this last time we talked, actually. Lessons on Uncompromising Play by David Navarra. These 2 books they might be in my top 5 favorite chess books of all time. And I also think they're really good for people above 2000. They are both too difficult for me. I'm 2000. So if you are my level, you will struggle with them. They're tough. And I can solve maybe 1 out of 3 problems and follow 1 out of 3 positions without struggling. Then 2 out of 3 I'll manage to solve somehow, and 1 I'll just fail. So they're really high level, but that's not why I would recommend them. They're different. Supreme Chess Understanding focuses on dynamics, which there aren't that many books devoted to that. It makes a clear distinction between static and dynamic pawn structures, and not just pawn structures, but how to approach positions that have fluid pawn structures that keep changing, that could change, that have very active pieces, that have kings that are in trouble. But it explains it in a much better way, on a very high level, and it teaches you how to navigate dynamic positions. I think that's really useful for advanced players. And Lessons on Uncompromising Play is basically David Navarra going over 100 of his own games and explaining why each one was important. Now, he did name chapters in the book. There are, many chapters, and some of them make sense. Some of them don't, but I still enjoyed the book. For example, a chapter on the initiative and then a chapter on on defense. Each has, let's say, 10 of his games. And his annotations are great. His explanations of why he started defending, or why he felt he had to seize the initiative in that exact moment, was really great to me. You don't normally get to hear a 2700 rated player talk about, oh, this is why I decided to play H4, and a great.
Yeah, somehow I still haven't read it. I along with the Petrosian Exchange Sacrifice book, I've got to move those to the top of the pile. And yeah, it's funny that we can sit and recommend books that we feel like are too advanced for us, because I'm a big fan of Wojciech Miranda's work as well. And yeah, his puzzles are so tough, but he does do a good job explaining them. You got to give him that. So that goes a long way, where like you're going to get it wrong, but at least you're going to learn something.
Yeah, but next to his book, it seems like, like Yasser Seirawan's books sometimes.
Right.
There's another book I wanted to mention for this rating range, A Technique in Chess by Yusupov, or actually by Dvoretsky. But Yusupov reworking Dvoretsky's notes on how to convert positions. It's a really small book. If it was actually words, you could read it in an hour and a half, but it's diagrams, so it won't take you months. But it's how to convert positions when you're up a pawn, when you have better pieces, when you have a better structure, when you have a safer king. It's a great book because there aren't many books like it. So Technique in Chess, it's an endgame book. It focuses on very complex endgames and how to convert them, which I think is it's a great resource.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, Yusupov and Dvoretsky, they put out so many classics, and those books are still super instructive to our prior conversation about older versus newer books. Those books are also in the readability category. Sometimes they lag a little bit, but yeah, I was trying to be diplomatic. You could put them up there with anything. We're leaving a lot of meat on the bone. Obviously, Stjepan's got the website where he's rolling out new reviews all the time. You also said on your website, Stjepan, that you're open to guest reviews.
Yeah, we're actually working on an update that's going to come out at some point before Christmas, where people are going to be able to log in and say, this is my rating, this is my experience level. And they're going to be able to open 2 types of accounts. One type, if you're willing to give your real name, your FIDE ID, or USCF, or whatever else, where we can verify that it's actually you can leave reviews on the website yourself. And then type 2 is going to be, you want to stay anonymous, great, you can comment on reviews and contribute that way. So eventually, at some point by the end of the year, people are going to be able to leave reviews, which I'm still gonna go over each manually, but they're going to be able to leave reviews. And currently, we're accepting reviews via email. And I've already had 15 people send their reviews, so I'm going over them now. So eventually we're going to have a lot of different reviewers and ChessReads. And I think that's the goal. It's hard to imagine that people would find the opinion of a single person useful when it comes to every chess book. That makes no sense. I want to get things going and have the skeleton ready, sort of have a lot of reviews ready so that people can get inspired and write their own. But it's going to be way more useful once, let's say you want to read the review of Dvoretsky's Endgame Manual, and you get 100 reviews from people. Some of them are rated 2600, some of them are 800. I think that's when it becomes a really useful resource.
Yeah, to what I was saying earlier, if I recommend something for the wrong level, which certainly can happen, yeah, that's a fantastic point. Well, thank you for, I mean, it's a massive project, so thank you. And you're not, the only monetization plan currently is that you're using affiliate links for when people click on books. Is that right, Stjepan?
We are only using affiliate links. Yeah, we're using Amazon affiliate links to earn commissions when people order books, and we also have a deal with Chessbook, also like an affiliate deal, but they are a platform I've been working on and once for a while. Eventually, we aren't going to be doing affiliate links at all once we set everything up, because we have other ideas which aren't going to be as intrusive. But for the moment, since we have to keep things running, that was the least painful option.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess I'm biased because I use affiliate links too, but to me they're not that intrusive. I mean, you just click on the link and order, and it's, you don't even make much money from them, so it's the least someone can do.
No, yeah, sure. I mean, if someone wants to support the project, that's a great way for them to do that. But if someone doesn't want to support the project, and want to buy a book, they can always Google, buy Dvoretsky's Endgame Manual. They don't need the link. So this is
exactly.
Affiliate links are a polite way of saying if you want to support the project, get the book via this.
Yeah, exactly. And if you want to buy from somewhere else, that's fine as well. But if the decision is, do we want these 3 cents going to Stjepan or Ben or Jeff Bezos, which are the options in this case, then I hope people will choose wisely.
Jeff
But last
Bezos
topic, Stjepan, is
sorry.
Yeah, I think he's doing I think he's doing okay. Last topic is your actual chess. So I know you've had some family stuff going on, so it might have been on the back burner, but what's going on? You have any tournaments coming up?
So yeah, I've been working on my chess and playing tournaments for the last sort of month and a bit. We had a family crisis, which is over, thank God. I actually had one of my best tournaments ever immediately after I came back to chess, or in the middle of the crisis still, but it was just about to end. And I only played it to get distracted, and I earned a bunch of rating points, and it went well. Then I played 2 tournaments while actually preparing and training very, very hard. The first one was in Poland. And for those of you who are going to watch my Road to GM games, I haven't recorded them yet, so report the spoiler, but I lost 4 in a row in the first 4 rounds. And that has never happened to me before. And I'm in bed after round 4, and I go and look at the pairings, and I see that I was given a bye because I was the worst performing player at the tournament, and that felt dreadful. That has never happened to me either. So after 5 rounds, I had 1 out of 5, but it's the bye point. And then, something happened to me. I managed to pick myself up, and I finished the tournament well. And that was the reason I'm mentioning this tournament, is because this is the first time I haven't given up literally and mentally. I made a promise that I would never leave a chess tournament unless it's something, whatever, very important. So that was, I think, a turning point in my career. Normally, thus far, before that tournament, if the tournament started poorly or if I was doing poorly, I would feel devastated. Now I don't care anymore after that. I mean, this family thing has a lot to do with it. I'm not really upset with my results anymore after something really important could have happened. So yeah, I'm really happy with my chess right now because I feel way more confident. And I'm finally back to training regularly. And because of ChessReads, I've been reading so many books. That's something
Right.
fantastic.
That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah, that'll keep you busy for sure. I'm already amazed at how many books you have up on the site, so I can only imagine. And yeah, definitely can't hurt your chess. And do you know what your next tournament is?
Well, we actually, my team and I, we have a league game in about 10 days, which will decide whether we climb up into the upper division. I don't know how things work in the US, but we're in the fourth league now. The first league is like Ante Šarić, Ivan Šarić, GMs. The second league is mostly GMs, some IMs. The third league is very high level. We're in the fourth league now, and we're in second place at the moment. If we win the next round, we will likely advance to the third division, to the third league, because we're playing against our direct competitors. So that's really important. It's a team event on 6 boards. And then after that, we have 2 more rounds of the Croatian League, in which we, if we do win, we have to do well in order to advance. And after that, I'm going to play the Christmas tournament in Krakow in Poland. That's the one I know I'm going to play. The Krakow Chess Festival. It's they have
Sounds
10
great.
different tournaments, and it's Christmas time in Krakow. It's wonderful. Before then, I'm not sure I'll have time because my fiance and I are uh, we're not homeless, but we don't have a place of our own, so we're staying in her grandparents' place on an island in Croatia. So it's really tough to travel. We have 2 dogs, and the logistics are too complicated for me to go and play.
Well, congrats on the engagement, first of all.
Thank you.
Yeah. And yeah, I hear you talk about the league in Croatia. I'm jealous. I've discussed many times how I wish there were more. I mean, the geography is not super conducive to it, but I wish there were more leagues like that in the U.S. And is the league in Zagreb, or where do you actually play the games?
So the league works pretty well in Croatia. The first two divisions are played during 2 weeks, and every team, all the players stay in the same hotel. And it's basically a big round robin tournament, or a Swiss, it doesn't matter. And then the third, the fourth, and the fifth divisions are played either once a week on Sundays or every 2 weeks on Sundays. And they are divided geographically. So each region of Croatia is going to have its third, fourth, and fifth division. So if you go to away games, we are going to an away game Sunday, 10 days. It's going to be maybe half an hour or an hour tops. So it's not
Okay.
a big deal. Uh, so yeah, it works pretty well. I wonder why they don't introduce regional leagues there as well in the US.
Yeah, I think it's just logistically challenging and no one's taken it on. I think once those things are in motion, it can be easier to sustain them, but it would take a lot of legwork, but it would be a lot of fun if they ever got going. And do you think Croatia is one of the strongest countries in the world per capita? This came up on a recent pod, so I looked it up. I mean, I think they're around 10th in the world number of grandmasters per capita. Do you think that, like, what do you think contributes to that?
That's an interesting question, but there are 2 even more extreme examples. 3 actually. So in skiing, alpine skiing, Croatia has the most gold medals other than, I don't know, Norway or whatever is the best country. We have 3.5 million people. No one knows why. And it wasn't just one skier, they were both male and female, and there are multiple examples. Then water polo, we have 3.5 million people. We always win the world gold, the world silver. I don't know why. And then,
Well, you guys are tall, so that does help with water polo.
but we're not that tall. I mean,
Yeah.
I think the average height is 180 centimeters. Don't know how much that would be in your measures, but we're not that high. And then the final example is football or soccer. How can we win the silver medal at the World Cup and then a bronze medal at the World Cup? How can we compare to Brazil and France and Argentina and Spain and Italy? I don't know. And in chess, we're actually pretty bad compared to other countries with a smaller population. For example, I think if you go and play in Serbia, uh, players who are rated 2100, they are stronger than ours on average. They
Hmm.
have more grandmasters, they have stronger players. And the same goes for most of the Balkan countries, most of the ex-socialist countries. But I think the advantage we do have is that we're an ex-socialist country, and every country in the Eastern Bloc, starting with Russia, of course, and the Soviet Union. So basically, the Soviet Union and Yugoslavia and Hungary, we all have a rich chess history. So that's a big advantage. And chess in Croatia was much farther ahead, I think, 50 years ago than it is today. And the same goes for Serbia, Russia, Romania, every post-socialist country. But I think that's a big part of it. That's why we have a lot of GMs, but they're getting older. There are fewer and fewer in the newer generations, I think, compared to the old.
Well, I looked it up while you were talking because I had looked this up again recently, and maybe this is just chessstackexchange.com, so maybe someone could fact check this, but they were 8th in GMs per million in the world in 2021, which Iceland, as I expected Iceland to be first. They're not first, but Monaco is first, which is kind of like cheating. There's only three grandmasters there, but obviously Monaco is primarily transplants. But anyway, I think that you're modest about Croatia's achievements, and the other thing, of course, is you guys crush it in top chess YouTubers per capita, with you and Agamater being there.
He
Since
does.
it's a small country.
He's among top guys. But I don't know. We really have a low population, and we're good at a bunch of stuff. I didn't know we had that many grandmasters per capita. That's great to hear.
Yeah, although you do make an interesting point about maybe it's moving in the wrong direction. We certainly have a lot of new chess powerhouses rising up the ranks. But it's also an interesting broader point about maybe there's something in the DNA more broadly that makes people pursue excellence in any field a little more vigorously in Croatia than they might in other places.
I don't know. Someone should do scientific research into why Croatia has successful people in many sports. It's really weird thing. But the point you said about the upcoming young guys, I think it's very interesting to follow what's happening in India, in Uzbekistan, in Mongolia, in Turkey. I can tell you personally, if you're in an open tournament and you get paired against a Turkish kid rated 1600, you're gonna lose. You're gonna lose, and you're okay with that. If you're paired against an Indian guy rated 1800, you're probably gonna lose, and that's okay. But and I don't know what's happening there, that I have so many kids competing against each other and getting so strong, because it's just that there are a lot of people in the pool and the competition is much stronger, and they, in order to even start playing tournaments, they already have to be strong. I don't know why we cannot accomplish that in Croatia, and in particular in the Western countries. If you go from Croatia to Italy or to France, people are usually weaker than Croatians within the same rating ranges. Whereas if Croatians went to Romania, they would lose every game in their rating. So I don't know why that's happening. I think it used to be money, especially like in the Soviet Union. I think money was one of the main motivators of why people, at least on the elite level, started getting really good. But on the lower levels, it's never money. So it cannot be money. It has to be something else. What do I care about the state giving the top GMs pensions? I'm never going to get them anyway. So, it has to be something else. And I don't know what it is. I'd like to find out.
Yeah, it is interesting. That would be a fun project for someone to tackle. And the ratings generally, I've been seeing it on like Chess Reddit a lot lately. I mean, I feel like it's bubbling over. I mean, we've been talking about rating deflation for years, but now with what happened with Hikaru getting into the candidates, and
Did he get in?
well, he's going to. I mean, he got the games he needed, so he's going to get the rating spot. And Hans Niemann made a video about there should be rating decay for people who don't play, because the system, clearly there's some deflation in people who play, and people who don't are able to protect their ratings. And I feel like it's sort of gaining critical mass, where FIDE did try to address it and did do some things, but hopefully some bigger changes are coming. I did an episode with Dr. Glickman, who's one of the preeminent rating experts in the world and designed the Glicko system. And maybe I'll try to do another rating episode in the next few months. I do think eventually it'll change, and that might help. That won't change. There's always going to be geographic hotspots and places where the interest in chess ebbs and flows, and where you have a lot of top young talent suddenly emerging. But at least maybe the rating part of it could be like it could be reflected in the ratings more quickly, hopefully.
Yeah. Just this point you mentioned about Hikaru's rating spot. I read a bit about that online, or I saw what he was doing, that he was playing open tournaments. If it's allowed, then he should be able to do it. Isn't it possible for someone, when you mentioned rating decay, isn't it possible for someone like Anatoly Karpov? What's his rating? Or Garry Kasparov? He must be over 2,800. Or if Bobby Fischer was,
Yeah.
isn't it possible for Kasparov to play a bunch of people my level, beat them, and just qualify instead of Nakamura?
Yeah, and they changed the rules starting October 1st. They're calling it basically the Nakamura rule. So it was possible exploiting that same loophole, but now they made a rule where if you're over 2650, you don't get 0.8 points for beating someone more than 400 points lower rated than you.
Okay,
So
okay. But it still
yeah.
works for people below 2650?
Yeah, but that won't get you into the candidates
Sure.
below 2650.
But
But
it
yeah,
can
they
get you
could.
to FM level.
Yeah. No, if you're a dormant 2600 and you just want to awaken your rating, you could do it by farming. But on the other hand, and this is what I said when I did a podcast interviewing people who played Hikaru, I mean, especially once you're not Hikaru, once you're like a 2600, I mean, if you're playing a bunch of 2000s, you got to be careful about which 2000s you're playing because you will get nicked for a game or two in today's climate. So
Yeah.
I mean, a draw or two, I should say. You probably won't lose. Anyway, yeah, we've gotten a field of the topic of chess books. But Stjepan, thanks for popping on. It's been too long, and yeah, I'm super excited for this project. So, listeners, obviously subscribe to Hanging Pawns, Stjepan's main channel, but also subscribe to ChessReads. Come find us in the Discord. Anything else, Stjepan?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that Ben and I did an interview on his excellent Perpetual Chess Improvement, and it's going to be out on ChessReads very, very soon on the YouTube channel. I'm actually going to discuss it with Ben when he's going to publish this interview, and then we'll find the date. But yeah, I just wanted to say that our interview from a while back is going to be out.
And also, I've been meaning to mention Perpetual Chess Improvement is finally on Audible. So it took 2 years, but in addition, I had mentioned in another pod that it's finally on the other audiobook platforms, but now it's on Audible itself. So if you've waited this long, or if you want some listening material while you're driving around, I will link to that as well. But yeah, and I will update Stjep with my interview with Stjepan when that is available. But you should be sub to his channel and find it anyway. Well, thanks again, Stjepan, and good luck with the project and in your upcoming tournaments.
Thank you very much for having me. Good luck with the podcast, with the YouTube channel, which I watched a few of your podcasts in video form yesterday. I love the YouTube channel, and good luck with everything else you do. Thanks, Cap.
Thank you. All right. Good to catch up.
Bye.